Time now for Public Pulse, your community affairs program serving Sheridan County. To voice your opinion and for questions or comments, please call 674-4443 or 672-5763. Now here's your host, Kim Love.
And good morning. Welcome to our Tuesday morning edition of Public Pulse, sponsored by Century 21 BHJ. We'll have a two-part program this morning. On the second part of Public Pulse, we're going to be interviewing author Jason Jennings, who has published his most recent book, The High Speed Company. So we'll be talking to Jason about that on the second part of Public Pulse. On the first part of Public Pulse, we have as our guest Doug Warner. And Doug is a Sheridan High School graduate who has now started his new firm, DropTrip's.com, up in Bozeman, Montana. So, Doug, good morning. How are you today?
Good morning. I'm good. How about you?
Good. Now, you graduated, you went through all the way through school here in Sheridan. I mean, at least through K-12, right?
Yes,
okay.
I did. I started in Taylor, went to Central, and I was in the last graduating class of the high school on the Hill.
Okay. How long ago was that?
That was 1987.
1987. Okay. So where is your life taken you after you graduated from high school?
After high school, I went to school. I did undergrad and grad work in New Mexico at a couple different universities there. And then a friend from high school was working at a company here in Bozeman, Montana. And he invited me up to interview, and I liked it, and I ended up working at that company.
Okay.
It was a small company of about a dozen people at the time. I was the third software developer, and by 2012, it had grown to 11 or 1,200 people and was
11 or 1,200?
Oracle.
Wait a minute, you went from 11 to 1,100?
Yes.
That's a pretty good.
Over 13.
Over what period of time was
13
that?
years.
13 years, okay.
Yeah.
That's still pretty good growth.
It is really good growth.
Yeah.
And we were based here in Bozeman and had worldwide operations. So we had worldwide coverage. Bozeman was our largest office. So
okay.
So what's a good undertaking.
What was the name of that company?
That was Right Now Technologies.
Right Now Technology. And what do they do?
They did a customer relationship management product specifically focused on customer support.
Okay. So you worked for them until, 3 or 4 years ago?
Yeah, until 2012.
2012.
I am very much a small business focused person, and by the time Right Now was about 1,100 people, it was getting too big for me anyway, and then Oracle came over with about 110,000 people, so quite a big jump, and I realized I was more interested in the small stuff, so I quit, and one of the things I did was I started DropTrip.
Okay, so Oracle bought out Right Now Technology.
Correct.
And you decided, now be honest with us, Doug, you decided, you know what, gee, I'd really like to be Larry Ellison rather than work for Larry, wouldn't you?
That's kind of it, there.
You want to be...
Yeah, with a company that size, you can't have any direct impact. It takes a little bit longer before your impact is really seen. And I like change. I thrive on change.
So, and I assume that those the guys who started that company, Right Now Technology, walked away with a fairly decent payday.
Yes.
And you decided you weren't thinking, you know what, I could do this myself. And if I continue working for Oracle, I probably won't have that big payday, but I'm going to start my own company. Right?
Well, yeah, there really is a lot of that. I mean, I come from an entrepreneurial family. My father and mother owned the Stage Stop Motel and the car wash that was right next to it. It's no longer a car wash, and several other businesses in town. So I'm really, I guess it's kind of in my genes to always see what new entrepreneurial activities there are. And as I was brought into Oracle, I realized in a company that large, it's not necessarily entrepreneurial.
Okay, so what happened between the time Oracle took over and when you started your own company? How did that genesis take place?
Well, when I left Oracle, my goal was to start DropTrip. I ended up starting 2 additional businesses, and they sidetracked me for a bit, but now I've put all of that on the back burner, and I'm spending all of my time on DropTrip. So the other businesses are just an internet retail business, and I also know a lot about intellectual property and patents. I had about 3/4 of the unique aspects of Right Now Technologies were mine, so I had my name on those patents, and so it enabled me to create a patent consulting business that I had clients coast to coast. And I shut that down because I think DropTrip's more interesting.
Okay, so now how long, when did DropTrip actually start? Did you have that idea while you were still working for Oracle before you actually quit?
I did. I had that. Yeah, one of the things I was doing while I was at Right Now, this is before the Oracle acquisition, is I took a position for Right Now out of our Australia office. And I was doing some work in Asia Pacific, and it was a great time. But one of the things I recognized is when we live here in the U.S., we get a lot of things that we expect to happen by habit. There are goods that we just go out and buy because that's what we need. And I recognized that I couldn't always get those things when I was in Australia. They have a different set of things that they like there. And that was really the genesis of the idea for DropTrip. So about 2011, I incorporated. About 2013, I finally got the team together, and we started working on this, and we now have a live product.
Okay, so you've been actually in operation for about 2 years?
2013 October 2013 is really when I got the team together, and we started doing an in-depth analysis of the business space and the competitive space, and really the technical aspects of how to make this sort of thing work.
So you didn't actually start operating the business until...
Well, we had about 6 people working on the business, but more on how is this business going to work? What are the specific needs and requirements? Because we are in a very new area of the economy that doesn't have a lot of patterns to go from, so we had to learn a lot of that. Once we learned that, then we started working on the product in developing the software behind the scenes that you see now, and that started probably about mid-2014.
Okay, so now explain. People are going to say, okay, tell us, what is DropTrip.com? What do you do?
Okay, so DropTrip, the shortest description of what we do is we are crowdsourced shipping. And what that really means is if you have an item that you need to have shipped, you can list it on DropTrip's site. And then when somebody who's already traveling from where you are to where you need your item, they can carry it for you. And you can end up then shipping things more efficiently, less expensively than you could with any of the existing commodity services like USPS, UPS, or FedEx.
All right. So would it be fair to say that you are kind of like Uber or Airbnb, but you deal with packages or things that need to move from one point to another?
Exactly, yes. I was just invited to present about DropTrip at a conference on the local on-demand economy in San Francisco last week. On Friday I was there, and that is exactly what a lot of people were saying. It's like, oh, you have the idea of UberPool, which is the carpool version where you can carry multiple passengers at a time. You have the idea for UberPool, but for stuff. And I said, yeah, that's basically it. The difference there is we are focused on a little bit longer distances. So really our sweet spot for carrying things is anything that's a drive that takes over an hour and probably a day or less. And we're really focused on next time you're on I-90 going through Sheridan, take a look at the car that's next to you or the truck that's next to you, and odds are basically empty. So what we're looking at doing is we're saying, all right, those vehicles that are moving between towns have a lot of extra space in them. Let's see if we can utilize that space. Let's see if we can do that by having people who need goods shipped, putting the items in there. They can then save money because that person's already making the trip, and the person making the trip can recoup some of their expenses. So, they can make gas money or meals or whatever they're doing.
So now, is your product available all across the country right now?
Technically it is. We are focused on Montana and adjoining states, but yes, anybody anywhere in the country can, or even I wouldn't say in the world yet, because we have some issues with different phone numbers and currencies in the rest of the world. But yes, in the U.S. you can use this. We are very much focused right now on our local region because that's where we understand the market the best.
All right. What are there certain types of products that are more that people seem to need your service more for?
Yes, there are. In fact, I would describe it as all of those things that are expensive to ship with any of the standard carriers. And let me give a couple of examples. So We have had shipments delivered to Sheridan. One of them was from Missoula, Montana, and it's a company that has a location in both Missoula and Sheridan. And they needed to ship 9 tower computers and monitors. So that would have cost a fortune to ship via FedEx or UPS, and they were just shipping it from one business location to another. And they were able to get all of those shipped in a pretty reasonable period of time by putting them in the back of somebody's pickup with a camper shell on it. And that person was driving through Sheridan on their way to somewhere else, and they ended up paying a little over $100 for that.
As opposed,
everybody was happy because the business could never get them shipped at that rate any other way, and the person making the trip was happy to make the gas money that they were already making the trip. So
now, what might have taken to ship something like that just through FedEx or UPS, just as a rough comparison?
I would make a guess that in addition to having to box them up and package them, because they were just, these are computers we have at this one location, we need it at the other. So to box them and pack them ready for shipping for UPS, I'm guessing they would have had to spend probably about $50 per computer and monitor, plus getting the boxes that they didn't have. So again, there were 9 of them. So yeah, we were talking
$700.
$600.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, I guess actually, Doug, we need to take a break for a couple of words on some of our sponsors. So if you'd hold on, we'll do that. And
no problem.
We'll be back with Doug Warner. 1987 Sheridan High School graduate who has his company DropTrip.com. You're listening to Public Pulse and News Talk 930 KROE Sheridan. And welcome back to Public Pulse, sponsored by Century 21 BHJ. Our guest again, Doug Warner, who is a 1987 Sheridan High School graduate who has now formed his own company, DropTrip.com, located up in Bozeman, Montana. Now, Doug, thinking about your, the shipping things, a couple of issues come to mind. One is, how do you make sure that the products get delivered, that someone just doesn't go online and say, we were talking about 9 computer towers. I could use 9 computer towers. So they sign up, pick them up, and that's the last you ever, see the computer towers.
Exactly. So there's several things we've done to really make that a non-issue. I mean, the first case is everything in our system is reputation-based. So you only deal with those people who have a reputation you can trust, and you can trust them. The next thing is,
so excuse me, Doug.
Every account.
Doug, how does someone get a good reputation with you? So if I wanted to all of a sudden say, I kind of like that, I'm going to be driving back around the area here, and sounds like a good way to make a little extra money. So how do you, if you don't know anything about me, how do I get started?
Yeah, so I mean, think about it in some ways like eBay. You don't want to go and give somebody with no rating a whole bunch of money for a product because they might not be a real person. However, it wouldn't be a problem using somebody who's already established. So in this case, the person shipping or traveling with the towers, computers, and the monitors had already established themselves in DropTrip by doing several other smaller jobs and got the level of trust that made these people comfortable.
Okay.
So that's step one. We also require that everybody who registers for an account have an email address and a cell phone so that, it's going to be a little bit harder to walk away when we can contact you directly. And then finally, we have insurance on everything anyway. So there is insurance coverage in case such a problem exists. Okay.
The second thing is that it comes to mind would be, how do you make sure that you're not transporting things illegally? Like, for example, let's say, if the person's dealing in drugs, say, okay, I've got these computer towers, I'm going to stuff them with drugs and ship them off to someone else.
Right. I'll just give the tongue-in-cheek answer first. It's probably a lot easier to just continue using FedEx like most drug dealers do today.
Okay.
But the real answer is because of that, we are what we call an open box policy. So if the person shows up at the door to pick up a package and something about it doesn't feel right, you said it was going to be, a bicycle, and instead it's this sealed suitcase that, weighs 20 pounds. That's not a bicycle. I'm not comfortable with this. I'm going to leave. They have that option. And so given that the person traveling is responsible for all of the goods in their possession while they're traveling, we need to make sure that that relationship of trust exists. And so the person traveling always gets to inspect the items before they carry them.
Okay. What are some of the other issues that have come up as you've gotten your business going? Issues are problems you had to deal with.
Particular issues,
problems you've had to deal with. Things. I hadn't thought about this, but
there's always something new every day. That's the beauty of owning your own business and starting out in a new area. For instance, I just learned recently, as we were planning on giving some best practices to the people who are carrying the packages and shipping the packages. I learned recently when I was at this conference in San Francisco that we can't give those people training because they're 1099 employees technically, and it's illegal to train 1099 employees. And we were really hoping, and so I'll have to figure out what the specific restrictions are on training these people to give the best level of service. So, for instance, there's one of the people who drives a lot here in Montana. He's a medical device rep for a company here in Montana. And he gives excellent customer service. Every person that I've called to and talked to after he's been, the person traveling for them, they just love how interactive he is. And so we'd like to capture what he does and tell other people to do that. But now, again, the challenges are, how do we do that under the guise of a 1099 or a contract employee?
Can you do it just with online training where you provide videos and things like that? And people, hey,
I think that's the answer.
Okay. Now, do you find that traveling salespeople are the best pool of potential transporters for you? I mean, that would seem to me natural there.
Yes, we do find that a very natural fit because they do have a regular route and they do travel long distances. And as salespeople, they're very entrepreneurial. I heard one of them say, they're used to the perspective of they eat what they kill, and so they're always looking on how to get that next dollar as they're already doing their trips. And so it's a natural for them because they see that. We also see it's kind of a natural fit for on the traveler side for all of those parents of students in traveling sports. The soccer teams, the baseball teams, the hockey teams, that sort of thing, because they travel all over the region for their events. And as any parent would know, in that situation, money is going to be tight doing that much travel. So this is an opportunity to reduce some of those expenses.
College students, too. I would think, you're located there in Bozeman, and, hey, folks driving home for Christmas, Thanksgiving, various other reasons. Hey, you got a package for me to take?
Yeah, we're definitely interested in college students. We do have some insurance restrictions, though, that we're working through, but currently we're restricted to people 21 and over because there's two types of insurance we have. One of them is insurance on the package, which all the shippers are very interested in. Is my package covered? Yes, it is. But the other side of it that nobody thinks about is as soon as you take $1 for doing something while driving, you're now legally considered a commercial driver. And if you're doing it in your private vehicle, you probably don't have commercial driver's insurance. So the college students aren't going to have the commercial driver's insurance, even though they're just making $20 on gas for their drive home. So we've gotten a policy that handles the temporary commercial activities of people while they're using DropTrip.
Now, Doug, do you still have family in Sheridan?
I do.
Okay,
yeah, my parents, Sheridan not technically anymore. They live between Sheridan and Ranchester.
Well, okay, Sheridan County.
Do.
All right. So,
and my sister lives out kind of southeast of town.
Okay, so
and she works.
So you have reason to come back to Sheridan. Now, Bozeman, I think, has done a pretty good job of diversifying its economy and attracted, 21st century types of businesses, hasn't it?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any advice for suggestions for Sheridan as to what they might do to attract more 21st century type businesses?
There's several things that really help Bozeman attract that. Our environment is beautiful here, just as it is in Sheridan. So that's a good starting point. In addition, we have the Montana State University here, which is a 4-year and graduate school. so to some extent, Sheridan College helps you guys as well with that. The pool we get a draw from is a little bit deeper there as a full graduate institution rather than just a 2-year college, but certainly that helps. But what really I noticed was the key for Bozeman was getting few anchor businesses that were doing very well. So back in 99 when I started, Right Now Technologies was one of them. They were certainly just starting up, but then there was another one here called Zoot that does credit processing. So they're kind of the middleman in a credit analysis situation between the bank and the credit agency so that they can help each other do that. So we had a couple anchor businesses, and that was really the seed that started a whole bunch more business activity.
Okay. Now, when those anchor businesses got started, did they just sprout up through happenstance, or did they get did the Bozeman city or Gallatin County act? Is it Gallatin County, Bozeman?
Yes.
Okay. Did city of Bozeman or Gallatin County actively try to attract them there and provide some economic help to get them started?
Right. I can't really speak to back in the day because that was a little bit before my time and what I was doing at the time. But what I can say is now both Gallatin County and Bozeman City work together collaboratively. They're both on the same page. They're not working against each other to help create a very positive business environment. And they have positions named for economic development within the city and within the county, and those two people work together very well.
Okay, so it's business friendly. So if I don't want to put words in your mouth, but a couple of the cornerstones for economic development would be one, your institution of higher learning, which in Sheridan's case would be Sheridan College, and being business friendly.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, Doug, we've got a second part here, so it's been a pleasure visiting with you, and so thanks for being our guest on Public Pulse, and good luck with DropTrip.com. And
thank you, Ken.
And if you come to Sheridan, look us up.
Right? I will.
All right. Thanks, Doug. All right, we'll take a break and be back with Jason Jennings. You're listening to Public Pulse on News Talk 930 KROE Sheridan.